Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to BHAT, Black History Awareness Trivia. So today is Sunday. I'm about to go to church, but I wanted to share some important Black history. We could learn from our ancestors on what actually happened and what they fought for us to be where we are today. So I encourage you to listen, learn, share, because there are so many people that need to know what's going on in the world today on how we got where we are today from what our ancestors has done. And it's all races of, that needs to actually know this. Good morning, Ted. How are you doing? So it's Black History Awareness Trivia. I've shared this back in February of 2019. Each month, each day in the month of February, I shared Black History Awareness. And I made it a little fun and did some trivia. So the trivia question is for today. This is the second day. I started back last Sunday. Several people had reached out and said, why'd you stop? It was really good information. So I thought that I would start back. And so I'm going to be here every single Sunday right before church. Good morning, Kelly. So the trivia question for today is, who played the three main characters in Hidden Figures? And what is the meaning behind it? So the trivia question is, who played the three main characters in Hidden Figures? Okay. Oh, you like my polka dot dress? I'm off to church right after I finish with this BHAT, Black History Awareness Trivia. So now, we're going to while you think about that answer, who played the three main characters in Hidden Figures, the movie Hidden Figures, we're going to talk about segregation. You guys, this is just going to blow you away. I'm just actually shocked. And as I'm sharing this information, I'm finding some things I was like, oh, really? That happened? So yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. You're always so complimentary. So thank you. Okay, so segregation. Although legal segregation was confined in the 11 states of the former Confederacy, and that as well as Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and the District of Columbia, segregation was also practiced by the federal government. Now, during World War I, the armed forces were segregated. You may ask how. The black soldiers held service positions rather than leadership or combat positions. Good morning, Gordon. I just did a trivia question and see if you can answer it. Who played the three main characters in the movie Hidden Figures, and what's the meaning behind Hidden Figures? So while I'm sharing this segregation, Black History Awareness, maybe you can answer. You all can find out that question, that answer, while I'm actually sharing this Black History Awareness. So during World War I, the armed forces were segregated. How, you may ask? Black soldiers held service positions rather than leadership or combat positions. But in World War II, African Americans were no longer willing to accept segregated or discriminatory conditions. Now, a threatened march on Washington in 1941 led to Franklin Roosevelt's Executive Order number 8802, prohibiting discrimination in the defense industries. In 1948, good morning, Mr. Lester Bailey, Officer B. Let me just say it one more time. I did the trivia question on who were the main three characters in the movie Hidden Figures. Okay, so now in 1948, the armed forces were desegregated. Moreover, African Americans serviced and sacrificed in the war efforts heightened resistance to segregation once the war ended. When blacks returned to civilian life, they found they still could not buy Coca-Cola at the Coca-Cola machine. And I'm going to show you a picture of that Coca-Cola machine. Because they couldn't buy Coca-Cola because of the color of their skin. How ridiculous does that sound, that you just fought for your country and in returning alive and well, you cannot purchase a bottle of a bottle of Coca-Cola, excuse me, because of the color of your skin. Now, the African American soldiers realized that segregation was still alive, and the realization was very disappointing. So now let's talk about the three main characters. Let's see, Kelly, you said, wasn't that about the black female Methodists? Yes, I think their work helped to support NASA in some way. I don't entirely remember. That is correct. You are correct. Now, the story of Katherine Johnson is one of the ladies, played by Tahaja P. Henson. Dorothy Vaughan was the other young lady, played by Octavia Spencer. And Mary Jackson was played by Janelle Monáe. Okay? That was a very good movie. Yes, it was. So the story of Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. These three African-American women overcame gender and racial barriers to help develop NASA's space program and change the history forever. Now, let's start with Katherine Johnson. Katherine Johnson, again, like I said, played by Tahaja P. Henson, was born and raised in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, on August 26th of 1918. You guys, she's still alive. 101 years old, and she is still alive and kicking. Katherine Johnson, they all were mathematicians, but she was a mathematician and a physicist. While Dorothy Vaughan, played by Octavia Spencer, she was born September 20th, 1910 in Kansas City, Missouri, and she passed away November 10th, 2008 in Hampton, Virginia, and she lived to be 90 years old. 90. Dorothy was an African-American mathematician and a human computer who worked for the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, known as NACA, and NASA at the Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. Good morning, Robert. Good morning. Mary Jackson is the last lady that was played by Janelle Monáe, in Hidden Figures, and she was born April 9th of 1921, born and raised in Hampton, Virginia. She passed away February 11th of 2005, and she lived to be 84 years young. These ladies lived and are still living a long life. So now let's start with the story. The American Dream and the untold story of the black women who helped win the space race. It took place between the 1930s through the 1960s, when women were still viewed as inferior to men. There are three real-life African-American female pioneers. They are pioneers that we are going to talk about today. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. They were all part of NASA's team. They specifically worked on Project Mercury doing space race. Now let's first talk about Katherine Johnson. Her impressive intelligence was evident from the time she was a child. She was fascinated with numbers and became a high school freshman at the age of 10, guys. At the age of 10, she was a high school freshman in her hometown of White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Now, the schools for African Americans normally stopped at the 8th grade for those who could afford to attend. But Katherine's father was determined to see his children reach their potential. So he drove the family 120 miles to the Institute, West Virginia, where blacks could pursue an education past the 8th grade, through high school and into college. He rented a house for his family to stay during the school year